Well, good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to Nature Sunshine 2018 Success Week. Today we have a great lineup, but first I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Jamie Wilmette. I work for Home Office and I'm a business development manager. Very excited to be hosting this webinar today. I just want to pay a tribute to some of our team members from Home Office that might be listening in today. I'd like to mention Josh Suby, David Villasenor, Ron Valenzuela, Scott Terry, Vic Pinero, Brian Wall, Jan Farr, and Curtis for hosting our, helping with our technical support today on this webinar. So I see there's lots of people still joining the webinar. We're going to get started here in just a moment. If some of you today aren't able to attend this full webinar, this will be recorded and saved on nspwebinar.com for review for the next few months. It will also be rebroadcasted at 6 and 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time today. Some of you are asking some questions right now if there's any notes or slides for the webinar. There will be, they will not be posted online today, but they will be on our nspwebinars.com for review. Okay, so next what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let you all know that today for joining us, you will be receiving 10 iInspire points just for being on the webinar today. And if you join all 4 of our webinars, you will be receiving 40, that's right, 40 iInspire points for listening to all of them. So today for our on-time drawing, we have 2 winners. So what you're going to be receiving is our Omega-3 180 count. And our 2 winners are, first one is Pam Gibson. Congratulations, Pam Gibson, for being on time. And then Martha Falk. Again, congratulations, Pam and Martha. Okay, so next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce Bob Phibbs. He is our retail doctor. He's a speaker, an author of 3 books, and retail sales expert of choice for some of the most legendary retail brands, including Lego, Chopard, Omega, Vera Bradley, and with over 30 years of experience, beginning in the trenches of retail and extending to senior management positions, he has been a corporate officer, franchisor, and entrepreneur. Phibbs helped establish Hunter Douglas Windows Fashion's Gallery Dealer Program, which established a culture of excellence and grew their sales 20%. He and his work have appeared on Fox, MSNBC, PBS, as well as Entrepreneur, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. He also performs business makeovers for the Los Angeles Times, IBM Futurist, and American Express Global Merchant Advisor, and listed as one of the top retail influencers in the country. Is there a doctor in the house? Let's please welcome Bob Phibbs. Bob, this is the time for you to share your screen now, and welcome, and thank you for having us on your webinar today.
Okay, I think you can hear me now. I am thrilled to be here today because, frankly, we're talking about how to do a better job in our own 4 walls. You know, a lot of people are worried about online retailers taking over their business, and, you know, let's face it, it's February, and in some parts of the country it's snowing, or some places it's raining or flooding, or I guess in Florida and California, it's probably pretty wonderful. But, at the end of the day, you've given me roughly 50 minutes to share what I think works really well. And as a bonus for you being here today, at the end, I'll give you a link that you can download my manifesto, which is basically how brick and mortar retailers are kind of at risk from online and some of the things that you can do about it. But today, I'm going to be sharing as many ideas as I can pack into our time as allowed. So again, stay tuned for that little bit of a URL at the end, and we'll also take questions as time permits, and Jamie will be moderating those as we go along. So I get it, people are worried about Amazon, and if you live anywhere in a major city, you look around and you certainly see more and more of those boxes. And I think the challenge for an awful lot of retailers is they look at Amazon cleaning their clock, but yet a lot of times the customer service that we get when we go into a lot of retailers is a warehouse. Do you have this? Yes, it's over there. Anything else? No, you got it. And the problem with that is you're assuming that your job is really just to fulfill orders. And that's really the fast track to the end zone, I think, because your first item is what pays your rent. The profit comes from the second one, and you've got to make margins. And an awful lot of times we keep thinking that it's a matter of just being online and everything will work great. But Ralph Lauren last April closed their flagship Polo store to save money. Now, I don't know if you know much about Ralph Lauren. It's one of the top 15 most recognizable brands in the world. And so they said it was a matter of saving money. And I say, at the end of the day, I've been in those stores, and I haven't found it to be an exceptional experience myself. I don't know if that's something that you've done. But I'm going to go through 10 points of what I think makes an exciting retail experience. And maybe some of these you heard before, but I say it in a different way. Or you think, oh, yeah, we used to do that, but we stopped. And frankly, we're about as successful as we make our minds up to be. So the fact that you have given me this time to share what I have found to be true in retail, let's get going. So first off is to court people who pay full price. I know that may sound obvious, but it isn't. I think an awful lot of times we are going after the sale this weekend only. And I know there's a retailer that I've seen in the news lately, and I'm sure you have too. They have gone through and tried to do a big makeover of the business, and yet it screams price every time you walk by one of these with sale signs hanging from the windows, from the merchandise, from the shelf ends, you name it. It's all about don't pay full price. And so what happens is customers come in and all they see is price instead of, oh, I could sleep better if I got this system of products, or this is how I could find a system for losing weight. And we get so caught up that it's about the one product that's on sale today, that's what you keep marketing, and then that's all your employees can sell. And so when the sale ends, your employees are unable to move the product because in their own minds, it's not worth it. So the first thing to be thinking about is the full price customer is who we need to find more of, and not stay so focused on everything is sale and a discount. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, because price is typically the way we try to win. And, I got news for you. Price doesn't make something good value. People do. And you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're a brick and mortar retailer or online, there's always somebody cheaper. Always. So what we do with that and how we look at that and how we market, we've got to find a way to get out of that as owners, as employees, as managers, because when we market always about price and we only have to say, oh, this is on sale, this is on sale, then at the end of the day, when it's not on sale, we think that it's not a good buy or it's not valuable. And you've got to remember, this is all about the customer. It's not about you. She came in because she's trying to lose weight, because she's trying to get a new job. The guy is trying to gain weight because he's a scrawny little guy like I was. I had a 27-inch waist, and I was eating supplements and all kinds of things to put on mass when I was a little guy. And that was my focus, because about my self-image. It wasn't about something having a sale tag at the end of the day. And I think that's really easy for us to forget, that the story of retail is, why is that customer, that guy, that gal, why are they leaving their house to make a special trip into traffic, in the snow, rain, sleet, hail, you name it, find a parking place in the hopes that they might find someone who's helpful. Those are called special trips now. We don't go shopping. So when they walk into your store, that is your chance to really compete with the big guys. But a lot of times we don't do that. Instead, we think that, oh, well, the windows don't really matter, or, what can I do differently? And you know what? Sometimes it's just a matter of being brilliant on the basics. So my second point is to attract new customers with great windows. So what makes a great window? Well, first off, they're clean, so we don't see, aging posters up there that the sun has faded, or little bits of tape that we left from when we had a Christmas display in 1993, and the product looks fresh, and ultimately that we can look into your store. This is an example of the Limited, and it was a beautiful window, and I won't go into what makes it all so great. Well, I will go a little bit. It's one color. We have the orange with the little traffic, and the traffic matches what's in the POP. But the key to this is you can see into the store. And a lot of retailers nowadays have decided that we don't need to have windows anymore, and it's just filled with stock, or it's got film over it, and we can't see it. And look, here's the thing. If you're struggling for traffic and people coming in, a lot of times people attract people. So even if you're not busy, having movement in your store that people can see from the outside is going to draw them in and help them see. Another great example is to, again, show a system, not just a bunch of products. I was in, I think this is Atlanta a couple of months ago, and it's an art supply store. So they've got art supplies, they've got cards and things. But the display here for the pencil shop, it's not the pencil shop, it's just what they use as a display, got your attention. On the pencil shop, what is that? And so there's all kinds of different pencils. And if I was to zoom in on that, there's all kind of erasers and how to sharpen the perfect pencil. There's actually a book about that, and why you would use certain types of erasers with certain ones, and then journals. So it's a complete system of how to write with a pencil. And so they have people actually walk down, they pick up the pencil, a couple pencils, the journal, the erasers, the whole bit. That's what you need to have too. So what is your system you're selling in your display, rather than just saying, hey, we have this stuff? How do we go through and get somebody's attention so that they can stop and notice? That's all they want you to look at, is we carry the complete pencil shop. That's all they're showing for this week. Next week, it's going to be a whole new thing. But that system of well-being, that system of sleeping better, that system of losing weight, whatever it is, that's what you want to bundle and group the products around, so that anyone coming up can just shop right from that display and not feel stupid. Because a lot of times we forget that the more choice we have as a customer, the more shopping feels like work. And when that feels like that, then it's easier for us to buy online. Number 3 is to attract customers with a great website. So I talked about this on my blog last night, and if you haven't visited my site, it's just retaildoc.com, retaildoc.com. But I talked about websites and social media a lot. And part of the reason why it's so important for independents is I think we go through and we think, oh, well, I have a website, it's fine. Well, not really, because websites have changed a lot in the last few years. We used to talk about keywords, and now we talk about keywords, but also intent and content. Because what people are doing now is they might put in there, they're looking for a particular store, but they're putting a best in front of it. So I want to find the best supplement company. I want to find the best apparel store. There's a million ways. And so what Google is doing is searching not only the web, it's looking for what your Facebook reviews say, Google reviews, all of that, but it's also looking at the actual structure of your store underneath it, how it's all put together. A lot of people, a lot of independents put together a cheap website. Their boyfriends, girlfriends, sisters, daughters, buddy did it for free, and they brag about it. But I hate to tell you, a pretty site doesn't necessarily perform because it hasn't done, it doesn't have the architecture underneath it to hold it up. The other thing is an awful lot of websites are changing to be more personal. This is the Guitar Center. And one of the things that I think was really interesting is that every store now, their employees have a little bio why they're an expert in what they're talking about. So what do they like about it? In this case, one guy has started up his own band, another guy starts up his own recording studio. There's many things, but why are they doing that? Because they're trying to show we are the place that are experts when it comes to expressing yourself with music. Is this something you could do? Absolutely. But they're trying to make sure that 90% of the people before they ever venture into a store these days are researching online. And when they do that, they want to see that this is a credible place for me to go. These people are nice, and get a feeling from it, because ultimately that's what you're going to want them to do when they come to your store as well. So I have a lot more I could talk about websites, but just know that if you created your website 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 4 years ago, everything is changing very quickly. And so invest in it so that you aren't just another retailer with something that looks dated. Number 4 is to attract new customers with social media. I would assume all of you have at least a Facebook fan page. Certainly that would be number 1. And I think it's something like 51% of people get their recommendations from Facebook over anywhere else. And if you're a millennial, it's something like 35% comes from Instagram. The challenge is that I think an awful lot of independents go through and we just stick a picture up there and we say, look at this. But we don't really think about context. Like if I was a customer and I saw this, what am I going to do with it? Because again, a lot of times we're just sticking a picture up and it's got a price, but it's called Facebook. It's not called Product Book, right? So you have to figure out, how do I get them engaged? Because the nice thing about Facebook and a lot of these social media platforms is you can go through and essentially be your own little network and control what's on it. And I can't think of a better way to do that than Facebook Live. Facebook Live is where you take your either your laptop or your desktop or your phone, and you can broadcast a live recording. The key with making this work, though, is that you want to go through excuse me, and educate them. So what would be 3 things that you think your customers would want to know? What are 3 most basic fallacies people have about your products? Whatever that's going to be, you make that the video. So I do a course on Facebook video, a 21-day challenge every couple of months. And last group, we had a woman who had an apparel store, women's intimate apparel store up in Canada. And so one of her Facebook Lives, she was actually traveling, and she said, one of the things that I run into is how do you wash a bra when you're traveling? So I said, well, yeah, try that, see what happens. She got 3,000 views on that. She actually had people coming in and buying different merchandise from her. Because why? Because she came off as the expert, and it wasn't about the product. It was about solving a problem that your customers or your shoppers have. So you can do this by YouTube, certainly. YouTube is more of a how-to kind of a social media platform. Twitter doesn't seem to be gaining steam. If you're on it, that's fine, but it seems like it's just not gaining many new people anymore. And certainly the action is with Facebook and Instagram where you can do live videos. So a few tips for you is certainly know your audience. Don't think of it like you have the world. The world is not your audience. What one thing could you teach them that day? What one item would be really good? And then just explain it. You can do it in a written post, but the challenge with that is that you probably have more than just 140 characters to talk to them. That's why a video is always better. You can look and see when Facebook tells you this post is performing better, then certainly boost the post, or you can take out an ad. And again, I know I'm taking a very quick and high-level view at all of this, and I imagine that Jamie has all kinds of resources for you to follow up with it. But make sure when you're on Facebook, you always attach some kind of an image, and ideally it's someone holding the product or someone using it or something just a product shot. And you can, but live video is the thing that is really driving everything. They're saying something like 75% of the web in the next 3 years is going to become video. In fact, we're seeing big brands are actually creating their own TV networks to have on their websites because video is so powerful. So don't worry that you're not the most beautiful person. Your hair doesn't look, I don't know, perfectly manicured. That might have some age spots on your hands. It doesn't matter. That's called an authentic personality. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody that can do it. And yeah, you could probably outsource all of this, but at the end of the day, you're the business manager, the business owner. You hear people's questions all day long. So you should know what you could take from this and be able to share with your tribe. And you know what's interesting? They'll talk back to you. And when they talk back to you, your information is showing to their friends, and their friends are seeing that they're engaged, and they start following you, and that's how you build a tribe. You know, it's easier now than it ever has been to get people who are interested in your product via social media. We don't have to aim the arrow at the sky and hope it hits something. We can go through and be very strategic on many levels, and Facebook Live really helps you. But you know, one thing about social media, you can't be social online and not social in store. You have got to always be thinking of your four walls, and that's why I say number 5 is, you know, pay more for your employees. At the end of the day, they are your most important asset. And I know I get questions from people around the nation, oh, what am I going to do when the minimum wage is going up to 11 or the minimum wage is going up to 15, so I'm cutting my employee hours. Just think about what you just said. You're cutting your employee hours to make the, save yourself, what, an extra $20 a day. Why not just think about it, making them more accountable? How about making sure that you realize that your employees are your most important asset? It's your most valuable asset. So if we think about that and we expect more from them, then we better regularly review them. You know, I always recommend if you have a new employee, you review them every 90 days, and then you review everybody every 90 days as well. Doesn't mean they get a raise, but particularly if you're hiring people under 30, they're used to a constant information stream. You're doing great. You're doing, this is what you're doing right. They're going to be looking for it. And when they don't get those kind of things, then they're going to be looking elsewhere, and turnover costs you an awful lot. I think a study last year said that the average person, when they are let go, costs the business anywhere from $1,000 to $2,300. And that's just a part-time one. That's not a full-time salaried individual. So we don't want to have high turnover, but make no mistake, if you hire an employee, they should be there to help sell the merchandise. They're not there to rearrange this end cap, move this over here, move that over there, and wait behind the counter until someone comes in and says they want one product, and then like a robot arm, they go out from behind the counter, they pick it up and say, anything else? Because that's not going to make you money. And if that's all you've got, then that's going to be harder for you as well. So just understand that, you know, you can do the work of 2 people, but you can't be 2 people. So when you cut down your employees, what happens is somebody comes in and they're working with that one individual, and another person walks in. What's the experience that second person gets? Is it nothing? Is it something? What if 3 people walk in? Now what happens? They're waiting. You know, the number one thing people don't want to do is wait. And if they see a lot of people waiting, what they'll do is just go through and look at it. They might order it online from somebody else. So it's really short-sighted. It's like we're stepping over dollars to save pennies. And just think about it, what the customer, you know what your busy times are. If you don't, look at your POS system. You can track that. When I was in the coffee business, we would track that every couple of weeks. We do that every quarter. You'd be able to tell what are the busy hours, what are the less busy hours, and then schedule to the traffic, not to the employee's need or when it's convenient for us as the owners. Number 6, we're already 6? Yeah, we are. Is to train better. You know, training is what I make my living doing, either in person or online. And we have an awful lot of times that people tell me, well, you know, I hire someone who's already trained. No one is already trained. They might be trained on somebody else's business, But a lot of times in 2018, we have people who are kind of like a Trojan horse. They're bringing the bad habits from another business to you. I was just finished a speech in Denver, and I was walking down the street, and I saw this ad out on the curb, and it said reduce hair loss with Embody Men. 4 out of 5 men say their hair feels stronger and looks thicker. I'm like, I am in there. I'm getting that. So I open the door and I walk in. There's a young woman right there, and I said, that stuff, I want that. And she goes, it's expensive. And I was like, do I look homeless? She goes, well, I just want you to know it's really, really expensive. And I thought about that, and I asked for someone else to wait on me, and I ended up getting it's a shampoo and it's a conditioner as well. But I'm bald. I'm balding. So I would do anything. I would move heaven and earth to not have that repeat. And that's probably the number one thing that you run into too, is your employees are selling from their own wallets. They wouldn't buy it. They buy it from somebody else, or they buy it with an employee discount. They don't pay that much, so they don't know why somebody else would. And whether they say it or not, the attitude is it's good enough. You don't need all of that. You don't need this. And at that moment, that's where your profitability starts taking a hit, because your employees have decided what someone can or can't afford. And that's just not true. I don't care whether they're old, young, short, black, white, gay, straight, missing teeth, or with all of them, they're all purple and their money's green. But if we don't train that, if we don't get that sense that the opportunity is there, then what we end up with is employees kind of putting the brakes on being able to sell the merchandise that you spent a lot of time and money trying to put together. And training isn't just exposure. A lot of times people will try to rush through training, or even if you have a written training program, it'll be like, I'm sure you already know this, so we want to greet everybody, make them feel special. We want to go through and treat everybody as a guest. Okay, you got that? Yeah, we've got that. Okay, great. Well, you're trained. Here's how we use the restroom. Here's the bathrooms. And here's how we stock. And the problem is that if it's left up to chance, your employees are going to wing it. And in 2018, you can't wing engagement. If you're going to be training a employee, there's got to be a system. And the way I give an analogy is just think of a movie. Let's take The Wizard of Oz. So we meet Dorothy in the first act. All right, so Dorothy, and she's got the little dog, and the witch is being nasty to her and all that stuff. And then the twister comes, and suddenly we're in color, and she wants to get home, but she meets the good witch. You got to go to Oz, and then meets her through friends, but there's the evil witch who's trying to kill her, and then we have to get rid of her, and they live happily ever after. Okay, that's the 5 acts of The Wizard of Oz. You're welcome. What if you cut off that first 25 minutes of that movie? Does that make any sense? Of course it doesn't. What's with the flying monkeys? What's with the shoes? Why are we going to Oz? And that's the same thing in retail brick and mortar sales. You've got to lay the foundation to create a sale. It's like putting the electrical, the plumbing into the foundation before the building can rise. And a lot of people, when all you can say is, can I help you find something? You've cut off the first half of the movie, and now you're expecting people to tell you their goals and dreams, but you have no right to really ask it because there's no trust. My mom is about 95, 94, and she had to go see a new doctor, and I said, well, did you tell him everything that was wrong? She said, I did not. I don't know him that well. And that's kind of the way it is with retail, especially when you're dealing with people's health and some of the issues they might be dealing with. They might not venture exactly what's going on with them. Doesn't mean they're playing a game, but trust is something you earn. It's not something that you can just take for granted. So a training program has got to have that A to B to C to D. You've got to be able to say, this is exactly how we want to greet somebody. This is how we build rapport so that we can become a trusted advisor. So when they get ready to buy something, we are able to not only show them what the best solution is, but we can show them a system for how to do it even better, which is something they won't get from our competitors or online. I certainly encourage you to check out SalesRx. That is my online retail sales training program. It's basically 70 lessons on how to greet a customer, build rapport, and to make them feel like they are the most important person in the world, because that's how we make money, is when it's all about the customer, not about us. Number 7 is to curate the best stock. I think that we think as independents, the more the better, and I think that was certainly a idea in the 80s. You know, if you went into a store like this, does that feel like more is better? Or would you rather have your choices taken down to something like that? Well, I hope it's the second one, because that's where we're going, is that even the big boxes are realizing that having racks and rows of merchandise can be overwhelming. So what we want to do is we want to think, all right, if I'm a customer, how do I chop down all of the choices that I have and make it so that this is the one just for you? And that's going to come down to how well you light your store, how well you keep it up. When's the last time you took everything off the shelves, moved the rack, cleaned the floor or the rugs? I mean, even that little gray stuff around the side, made sure that you relamped. You know, there's an awful lot of options you have now with LEDs. You can light underneath the counters and the fixtures so that the merchandise can really pop. But really think of it as a new customer, because when a new customer comes in, they've got a different attitude than you do. Remember, these are people who are doing something else with the rest of their life. They're not necessarily the experts like you are. Your whole world is that store. They're visiting this world. They don't know what that's like. So, you know, the part 8 is we talk about engaging the customer. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't really either understand or respect maybe is, what is the buyer journey for somebody buying something? And it kind of goes like this. You know, a buyer's journey, so there we are, we're at home, we're half watching Game of Thrones, you pick up an iPad, you start thinking about, let's just browse something. And so it doesn't matter the product. Maybe it's clothing, maybe it's vitamins, maybe it's lawnmower, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that idea comes to us, I want something, but I'm not sure what it is. That's 60% of the buyer's journey. 30% is consideration, which is where we're saying, well, what are my options? You know, I saw this one on this site, I saw this on another. I have a few questions for it. I need to go in and see the difference. And 10% is the decision phase, which is this the best one for me? So if we understand that, then I have a question for all of you watching here. When your untrained employee says, can I help you find something? Tell me what part of the buyer's journey is that speaking to? Yeah, exactly. It's that 10%. You're assuming that the customer is coming in knowing exactly what they want, knowing exactly how much they want, and only having a certain amount of money to buy it. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that when we talk to them and when we train your employees, that they are dealing with that customer that walks in that doesn't know what. They're just 60% in awareness. I just know I want something that might help me with X. Okay, great. Well, feel free to look around, and I have a few options for you. Would you like me to show them to you? But the idea is to be invitational, not pulling back and waiting for them to come to you, but to always invite the ability for them to ask questions, and more importantly, for them to feel that they can trust you. And that takes a little bit of work. There's no two ways about it. Inviting them. So number 9 is we want to invite them back. And what that means is that when they come to your, when they buy from you, your cashier should always say, we look forward to seeing you again. We also want to find a way that they can line up for your loyalty program. We want to send them a welcome email if they join that, so that they do it. There's a new system that integrates with a lot of POS. It's called Podium, and it'll send a text out to people immediately trying to get their Google reviews to review their purchase with either Google or Facebook. And the idea, again, is that we're trying to get more reviews so that online you end up being able to be the best option for services in your local community, because that's what Google is going to show them. Being able to go through, and when you email them, having educational information for them, not just ability to go through and use a coupon for 20% off for this weekend only. Because here's the thing, when all you're looking at coupons, if that's all your marketing is, what you end up doing is pretty much stealing the market that you would have had in a couple weeks. You're bringing them in a little bit earlier, and then you think, well, I need to do this again. And so we just get in this nonstop rotation, when really the idea is you can buy the best solution for what you're trying to fix with us anytime, and being able to make sure that they understand, oh, so you're not sleeping. You know, I was looking at something the other day that said, I guess the market for sleep aids is up something like 20 to 30% over the last 3 or 4 years. So what does that tell you? Well, people are having trouble sleeping. So mattress stores, a lot of people are trying to help people understand it. Well, the same with you. You know, we're also a highly caffeinated society, and we're also pretty fearful. So could you speak to that in your email when you're inviting people back? You know, it has nothing to do with the product that they bought this time, but just saying how people who shop with us tend to find that they are a little bit less, they're not able to sleep as easily. And here are 3 ways that you could do it. So one of them might be that they could work out. Maybe that's going to be it. Go for a long walk for 20 minutes. And then maybe it's going to have a system of being able to sleep better. You have 2 or 3 products and make it easy for them. But the more you can understand your customer, the more they'll feel like you are speaking just to me. It's kind of like I'm doing with you. I know brick and mortar retailers, so the idea isn't foreign. I understand what you're up against. I've worked 60, 80 hours a week. I understand you're waiting for your traffic to come in. But at the same time, if we don't invite them back, if we don't make it so that it feels that, oh, the party was in the aisles, I really got to know that one person, I really had a bond with them, and I'm only talking, you know, maybe 30 seconds or a minute, not we're going to have a long conversation, then you're just like anybody else. And if you're just like anybody else, why am I going to make a special trip? And if I don't have to make a special trip, I might as well buy it online. And we tend to forget the one thing that brick and mortar does. It can provide a feeling that people matter. You're going to sell more when people feel they matter. Online by design is fast, it's frictionless, and it's driven by price. And if you don't give that feeling, and if you don't give that welcome, and if you don't give that feeling to come back again, you know what? You're just a slower, more expensive version of online retail, and people aren't going to go out of their way to support it. The number 10 is to clean. And my first job was as a janitor, so that's probably what informs all my business makeovers, that we start with cleaning. Because a lot of times we forget what our business looks like. You know, you forget how funky the bathroom might look to a woman walking in there and has to use it. You might forget what it's like to have your employees still smoking out in front of your store, and there's little cigarette butts around the front. You might not look at the half-dead plants that are on the side of your business because you forgot to water them. There's a million things, but that's why I always believe you should have some kind of a daily detailed cleaning list. Now, I used to be in the coffee business, and I'm just showing you an example, but every business has a way of looking at their store so that they know what the ideal looks like, and then you build the detailed cleaning list to match it. So whatever that's going to be for you, that you are making people go through on a daily basis. You know, one of the things that we used to do in retail was to make sure that you clean the front doors every hour, because people walk in, they touch their hands on the doors, or little kids do, and it just looks sloppy. And again, when you're dealing with a fickle customer like we are today, the one thing that they can rave about is cleanliness, and they can make sure that they sound like, okay, this is really a nice store and they keep it up well, then that's rave worthy. But if you're just going to look like the other guys, probably not so much. So I would also encourage you, want to look at some things to do in your store, go look at your competitors. And don't tell me you can't do that. Just go in there. They won't bite you. And look at what they're doing. Or look at the big chain that's opened up down the way or in another store, or another city, and start looking at how does your cleaning compare to them? And at the same time, how does your merchandise compare to them? Because you know what? Merchandise is a lot like fresh produce. It has an expiration date. And while we may not see it, customers certainly do. Maybe you've only got a couple of something left, or it's been around for a long time. You've been trying to mark it down. At the end of the day, try moving it, try putting it on a promotion. But at some point, you got to get rid of it, because merchandise that sits that you can't find the way to sell isn't going to magically get better somewhere down the line. And I know that an awful lot of you, are saying, well, I need to make more sales. I need to make more sales. Well, that's great. But it starts with a customer. Because if all we're doing is couponing our business and discounting it, then ultimately there's no feeling there that the customer can feel special and taken care of. And, I've got a little bonus here for you, is number 11, that are you tracking your key performance indicators? Are you looking at how much each salesperson rings up per hour worked? The two that I always look at is what are the number of items per sale, and what is the average sale when your crew works? Because both of those can be influenced by their sales training. If your average number of items per sale is 1.1 or 1.2, that's pretty much just clerking what people are already asking for. And here's the advantage to you. Someone who drives to your store, I think a recent survey by KPMG said something like 70% of people who walk in a brick and mortar store these days are inclined to buy. So if your conversion rate, which means the number of people that walked into your door divided by your number of tickets that you had on your computer, on your POS system, if that's 70%, well, you rock. But most people, it's a fraction of that. It's like 10 to 20%. And how does that happen? Well, it means people walked in, they looked around, but for whatever reason, we didn't engage them at sufficient level to be able to buy more than what they wanted, or even to buy what we wanted. So when we're talking about paying employees more, you're paying employees to go out and engage strangers. And that's not going to come naturally if they're millennials. You're going to have to train them what that looks like. And even if you've been doing this for a number of years, if you find yourself, it's easier to stay behind the counter than to go out and help somebody, you probably need to look in the mirror, because people can feel that. And if you're just waiting behind the counter, or as I call it, the castle, for somebody to come up and you'll lower the drawbridge to answer the question, well, that's a terrible place to start off a relationship. Your goal is to get out from behind the counter whenever somebody is in there, and then go through and make sure that your employees can see that, I'm not stuck to the ball and chain of the counter. I'm out there engaging and discovering new people. We love to think that the grass is greener on the other side, but 90% of retailers lose money online. Amazon lost $7 billion last year. It's a different group of problems, but it is far from the right answer. And I get it. You might be looking at your balance sheet and you're saying, this is down, or this is down, or this category is off, or traffic. But you know what? It's a terrible statistic if it's not going to make you change. At the end of the day, you're the only one that can do that. And you know what the shocking thing is? That your customers want to buy more from you. That's why they walked in the door. So your mantra with your crew is, how high is up? Not did you help that guy get what he wanted? Because they are more often open to a system that goes with several products than just to one individual. And at the end of the day, right now, we're hearing that, retail apocalypse and everybody's closing, and, we're all going to be buying everything online. And just understand that your employees are hearing that too. And they may not have the coping skills that you do. Maybe they're trying to go through and they're trying to deal with a kid that's in rehab, or a parent that's got bipolar, or a kid who's had to drop out of college. Everybody's got stuff that they're trying to deal with. But at the end of the day, people shop and walk into your store because they're hopeful. that's what you got to remember. They themselves, shoppers, are hopeful. If they're depressed at 10 a.m., they're in a bar. They're not in your retail store. So how do you go through and engage them in such a way that says, oh, you're looking for hope when you walk in my store. I have it right here. And when you can do that, then I think what you end up finding is that customers become rabid about the service that you get, and they'll drive past 2 or 3 competitors to be able to shop with you instead of pick up their phone because it's, quote, easier. And, you know, if you never talked about Amazon or online people to your buddies, it would probably be great, because at the end of the day, I can't close down Amazon. You can't close them down. Walmart is trying to go after Amazon. They're having a little bit of a tough time. I don't know if you saw their story this last week that they found out that their sales growth dropped in half for e-com, and because they were selling cheaper and cheaper stuff online, which, fill in the blank, is not profitable. So a lot of online businesses are trying to get into brick and mortar because there's a finite amount of customers online. And you have what they don't. You have a brick and mortar store, and you hopefully have well-trained employees, and well-trained employees can give people something that online can't. It's a feeling they matter. And when people feel they matter, they'll buy more. And that's really your only hope here. You know, we're talking about how to re-engage your brand and to re-energize your brand. But when you're looking to really get going again, just realize you're about as happy as you make your mind up to be. You know, if it's tough to be you and it sucks to be you and the world's against you, well, then you win. What if, as an entrepreneur, you could say, oh, well, what if we tried this? What if we moved all of these things around? What if I tried putting my fixtures at an angle, because that's what modern stores are doing more and more. Instead of at a 90-degree angle, they're at a 45-degree angle, because that makes people shop and take interest. Well, then you've got hope when you come into your store. And that's what I want for you. That's kind of like my last part, is that sense that, you know, we're about as happy as we make our minds up to be. And you can't avoid the luxury of a negative thought right now. Because when you bitch and moan about it, your employees are going to feel that. They're going to feel that they can't compete. And then they're going to end up settling for whatever is on sale instead of finding the complete solution for your customers. So that kind of brings me to the end with Jamie, and we have time for a few questions. But I do ask you to think about, what did you hear that was most impactful? What are you willing to change in your business today from spending the last 50 minutes or so with me? What are you going to take action on right now? Because you just invested 50 minutes, and I pretty much have told you probably, I don't know, 15, 20 ideas you could do, but what are you willing to try today? Because the nice thing about a brick and mortar store is you can go through and change with that very next customer that walks in the doors. So Jamie, I think I will turn it over to you. Actually, I think, oh, whoops, I had one more thing. And if you want to get that, my report on brick and mortar retailing at risk in the digital age, the principles and policies and intentions are going to be crucial to you succeeding. You just go to this address there, http://bit.ly/NSPBob, and you can download that right then and there. I give you an awful lot of things to consider, and also with that, you'll be able to get my Sunday night newsletter, where every week I give you something better to do with your retail sales training, with your training your employees, your marketing. This last night I went through and gave, I think it was 7 ways that you can use your website and social media to drive sales. So I hope you'll do all of that. And again, thanks for joining me. Jamie, you have some questions for me.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine.
Okay, great. So first and foremost, thank you so much. I've been writing down some things, and my paper is covered with some things to go over. So, so we will take a few questions here. So the first question we have, let me go back and find that one. If you have someone with health needs of a product, but they don't have the wallet for it, would the approach change?
How would you possibly know what the wallet is? I mean, that would assume that you had done, and here's the thing, unless you build trust to begin with, I think you end up with a kind of a loser's limp. Oh, they didn't have the money for it. Look, people are walking around with $10 Frappuccinos these days. I mean, we make money for what we feel is in our best interest. So I would challenge you to think that, you know, when they're saying they don't have the money for it, then what would they have been doing in the store? I always say show the complete solution. So if that's going to be 8 products, 5 products, or 3, and someone says they don't have the money for it today, then you say, well, you know what? Then if you only have money for 1, start with these 2. But I'm certainly not going to buy. Here's the thing. If that's what you believe and you allow, then you're always going to say, oh, they didn't have the money for it. But that's really a loser's limp. There's millions of reasons people do and don't buy, but the number one is, well, 75% of customers surveys say the number one reason that upsets them the most is nobody greeted them and they feel they didn't understand their needs. So try going the other way around that and say, I need to build better trust with them, sell from the top down, the complete system, and leave something rather than try to just say, well, there's nothing I can do. Because where do you go with that? I have health needs, but I don't have money. Go rob a bank, borrow someone's credit card. There's no way. So your goal is always to get the sale. Your goal is to help this person take one step closer to better health. I hope that helps.
That helps. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, are the principles the same for a new retail account in comparison to one that's been open for a long time?
Oh, that's a great question. The nice thing about a new store is you're able to go through and not make all those mistakes. So a new store, you know, it's always exciting to open a new store, right? Because the energy is there and everything's new and people are looking at how do I do this better, and it's fun. So you can get that training element down so that you have that sales process and there becomes a certain, let's just say, in my case, it would be Bob's way of doing it. So for my store, everybody would understand it. The difference is in a legacy store that's been open for a number of years and different managers, maybe you were the owner and you've gotten into another business or you're not as involved, that a lot of people have created what essentially now would be Bob's legacy service, which may or may not match what you started out with. So as a more seasoned veterans on your floor, they might take a little bit more conversation to bring around, but make no mistake, you don't get a pass because you worked with me for 10 years and you're basically bitter Betty and you don't want to do any of my new changes of, you know, building engagement with our customers and going through and using social media, let's say, and talking up our customers. If you don't want to do that, then they shouldn't be on your sales floor, because the bank is not going to say, oh, well, you bless your heart, you didn't make enough, you can take a pass this month, and you want to live a life that you want to live. So for a more established store, I think the urgency is greater than a new store. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. And before we get to our final drawing winners, I'm going to take one more question here. How do I know which products to bring in when I'm just starting out?
Well, that's a great question too. I always say, you know, the pioneers were the ones that got the arrows. The settlers were the ones that followed their tracks. So, you know, yes, you may have a special interest in some products because you personally use it, but you always want to look for your best sellers and start with that so that you know that this has got a wide range of interest before you niche yourself into a place that may only have a few people in it. And I think Nature Sunshine has don't you have like a tab or something, Jamie? Don't you have some kind of a...
Yes, if you actually go to our Nature's Sunshine website, there is a top sellers tab, and it lists all of our top sellers in order. So it really does take out a lot of the questions there. You can just go off of that. That's a good resource for you.
Excellent.
Okay. So again, everyone, that was Bob Phibbs with 10 ways to energize your retail business. We thank you so much. And so I just want to kind of go over a couple things that Bob had mentioned that were feedback that we're getting from the comments here. Lots of great comments coming in. Bob had talked about our 21-day challenge on Facebook. We just want to remind you that he mentioned live videos work great. I know Kim Cassidy had posted last week's webinar on social media, and that has turned out to be very successful. Other good platforms Bob mentioned were Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram to kind of build upon those. Something I wrote down was to schedule around store traffic, the importance of training your employees, quote unquote, you can't wing engagement. Invite them back, being able to trust you, getting more reviews for your community, loyalty programs, and influencing your sales training. People need to feel that they matter. So those are all some things that you can go back on our website on NSP webinars at natr.com. If you missed them, you can go back and listen to the recording. Again, we will be rebroadcasted at 6 and 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And a couple upcoming webinars is we have Sylvia Rogers, love her. She is going to be talking Paradise Relaxing Blend, and that's going to be on Wednesday, March 7th. Lawrence Smith, as we all know, he's amazing, and he's going to be on Wednesday, March 14th. He's going to be discussing omega-3s, a key nutrient for good heart health. Okay, so a couple last things. We will be, I'm sorry, most of you have probably already seen that today only we have free shipping on online orders of $100 or more. You can use the offer code SHINE. Again, that is today only, so please don't let that pass you by. And we're going to get to our final drawing winners. So today our two winners for Perfect Eyes are John Fry. Congratulations, John Fry, and Elmer Schmucker. And please make sure you email your account number and your home mailing address to nspwebinars@natr.com so we can get those prizes out to you. Thank you so much for joining us for Success Week. You've taken the time today to invest in yourselves and your own businesses, and we at Nature Sunshine really appreciate you. So thank you, Bob, and thank you everyone for attending today. Have a wonderful week.